TBD Podcast, episode 9, everybody. Kelsey Duncan, what's up?
What is up? Thank you for having me.
Thanks for doing the pod. I appreciate it. What are you up to today?
A little bit of everything. I don't know. Every time someone asks me what I do, I'm like, it's like a deer in the headlights. I'm like, what do I not do?
Well, that's the life of an entrepreneur.
It is.
Every day brings new challenges, new tasks.
I think one of the hardest things is deciding who you're talking to and what you should communicate to them that you do. Because sometimes, I mean, if I'm at a school teacher, she doesn't care that I do real estate investing. She might be really excited that I could come talk to her students, though. You know, it's always deciding who you're talking to and like what might be most relevant to them.
And then as you kind of progress and the years go by, you maybe realize, hey, I shouldn't be talking to those type of people. And then as you get more people on board, you can delegate, hey, this person can talk to that person. I don't need to kind of handle that anymore.
But right now you have to do all of it.
Right.
So that's the fun part. But it does get you really well-versed in having those conversations and talking to all types of people. I think that the early years of entrepreneurship are the most enlightening, and they prepare you the most to be able to delegate things like that in the future. I don't think that anyone becomes uber successful in entrepreneurship without having done all of this shit work first.
Yeah, you kind of have to start out in the trenches unless you're in the position and, you know, maybe your father or mother had a company and you're kind of gearing up towards that role. If you're on your own and living your own vision, yeah, you got to start in the trenches. So you're super young. Why are you an entrepreneur? Why not just go get the nice job after college? Steady Eddie, easy route.
I would rather eat my own foot than follow a traditionally accepted or expected lifestyle. I'm not here to do that. I think that I do not like routines. I like a routine that starts a day that I can then just do whatever I want. And so I think that a 9 to 5 for me would not be fulfilling. Doesn't mean I haven't had them. I think everyone should work in the service industry and in retail because you need to know how to treat service professionals. And, you know, I can't tell you how many people go to restaurants and I can't stand people that are rude to waiters and waitresses. So I think you should have jobs that teach you how to treat people, but those are my only 9 to 5 experiences. Everything else has been very entrepreneurial in nature, even if I didn't realize it at the time. So
you're so young to kind of have that mindset. How did you first start out in your entrepreneurial enterprises?
I think that if I could have come out of my mother's womb and said, I'm a serial entrepreneur, like I would have. I started very, very young. I think I was 15, and there were football players at my school that couldn't get jobs on the weekends, and a lot of people started getting jobs around 15, 16. And so I lived in a very large neighborhood, hundreds of homes, and a lot of stay-at-home moms needed help around the house. And so I thought, why don't I get these football players when they're not at practice and they're not playing games to go do this handiwork? They can be shown how to do something very easily. You get shown how to touch paint up on a wall once and you can do it over and over again. And so I thought, okay, what if I drive them over on my little golf cart, which I was totally not legal to be driving that thing around.
No.
But I would drop them off at the neighbor's house and I would go home while they worked. I would make lemonade and then I would come back and collect the boys and collect the checks. And then I would make commission off of whatever they earned that day. It was like a finder's fee.
Interesting.
So I called it High School Handy Boys.
You were 15 years old.
I was 15. And from that day forward, I thought if I can get paid to get other people paid and have full control over how that happens, then that's all I want to do in life.
Wow.
And then I came home at 16 with my wholesale license, and I had formed an LLC without my mother even knowing, and started selling clothes online to the women in my neighborhood. So it's been a long time coming.
You must have been alone in your space, right? I mean, I would imagine as a 15-year-old girl, there's not too many like you, your age in high school, with an entrepreneurial mindset.
It was very hard.
Yeah.
The boys used to say, you don't date her, you marry her. Like essentially stay away from her right now because she's not playing games.
That sounds like a compliment when you're 30, but Maybe at 15, it's not.
But at 16, it's like, why do they hate me?
Yeah.
I ran the school store in my high school, which afforded me a lot of freedoms. I could leave, halfway through school and drive 30 minutes to Costco to pick up candy for the school store and then pick up Japanese food, come back for 7th period and eat
Wow.
fried rice and shrimp, while everyone's like eating their PB&Js. So there were trade-offs, right? Like I didn't have many friends, but I did have Japanese takeout and the ability to just leave when I wanted to.
Everyone's like sitting there with their PB&J like, damn it, I wish I had some fried rice right now.
I still love a good PB&J.
Well, who doesn't? That's the thing. Grilled cheese, PB&J, all those classic snacks are great.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. So then transitioning into college, obviously you going to college, you kind of had the idea of like, look, I kind of know what I'm doing. What made you want to go to college in the first place if you kind of knew, hey, I just want to be an entrepreneur?
It was forced. I had no option. So I'm an only child and neither of my parents went to college. My mom did for 3 hours. They're very self-made, but they wanted every opportunity to be available to me without me having to fight. So that was kind of like you either go or we don't support you kind of thing. And I didn't have a problem with it when I was first going to college because I had the last 2 years of high school is when I really realized like I want to be in business. And so my first 2 years I was a hippie. I was wearing like floor-length floral skirts, completely opposite of who I am today. And something just clicked for me one day. And so there was no option. I was going to college. And then if you came from my high school, you went to one of 2 SEC schools. And I kind of followed my friends at the time to University of Tennessee. So
yeah, I think I had the exact same mindset. I'm an only child too. Shout out only childs out there.
it's really fun.
Yeah, it's great. 2 Christmases too, because my parents were divorced. So like it was kind of only child, 2 Christmases. I was like, okay.
Am I jealous?
Not so bad.
Or do I feel for you?
But I was pushed the same way. And I think a lot of young people, now it's a little bit different. I think right now college is seen as more of an option. But I think a few years ago, I graduated high school in 2010. I'm a little bit older than you. But for me, I was pushed super hard by my parents to go to college. And I never felt like I had a reason to. Like you said, I followed my friends. I wanted the whole football, party, tailgate, American Pie movie experience, but it wasn't something that I felt I had a drive to go do. I was always a real estate guy. Okay. Like on my college admissions essay, I wrote about how I'm going to own duplexes one day in a real estate brokerage. Like that's what I wrote about when I was 17 years old.
Wow.
So me going to college was almost this, not a distraction, but kind of like, okay, high school's over. I guess this is the next step.
Yeah.
So you were there.
I don't even remember my own college essay because I wrote my then boyfriend at the time's college entrance essay to get him in. I do remember that one very well because I put so much effort into it, but I don't even remember my own, which is kind of funny.
That is funny.
Yeah.
So where'd you go to school?
University of Tennessee at first, and then I transferred into the University of Tampa as a senior. College was weird. Like you said, it was not something that I think, given everything I know now and the experiences that I had, I don't think that I would change anything knowing the outcome of who I am today, but I don't think that I would go back. Like if it were to be started all over again and I didn't know what would have happened or wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't go back. And I don't ever tell people that I think that they have to go to college. One of the things I always ask people on the show is, do you think a college degree is necessary to be successful? And I think 10 years ago, if you asked that question, people would say absolutely. And now it's no. I ended up finishing college not because I wanted to finish college and it was bringing me a lot of knowledge, practical knowledge. It was because the ROI at that point, I'd already gone through 3 years of it. It would have been very stupid to leave at the time that I was considering it. So
what were you studying?
So, I'm sorry. So at the University of Tennessee, it was business with a focus on entrepreneurship, but they did not have an entrepreneurship degree at the time. Again, entrepreneurship, I think, is being something that is taught and widely accepted.
It's a buzzword recently, for sure.
It's new, And so when I was in college, when I first went to college, it was kind of taboo. And so it was business at first with a focus there. And then when I transferred to the University of Tampa, I was kind of excited because there was an entrepreneurship degree. It is a BS in entrepreneurship, Bachelor of Sciences. And I say BS for a reason because, you can't teach real life experience. You know, it's like you can tell me all day long that the stove is hot. What is hot?
Right.
Until I put my hand on it and I know that it's hot, then, you know, it's not the same thing.
I feel like I've met so many UT kids that have that same degree, entrepreneurship. And I haven't really asked, but what exactly I mean, you don't have to go through the whole curriculum, but what type of classes are you learning in a program like that?
I don't remember.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly.
The one thing I do remember, I think my psychology classes and my philosophy classes taught me more than any other course. That, and then just from a understanding people standpoint and kind of knowing how to speak to people or understanding where they're coming from, those are critical. And I think everyone should be required to take those types of courses.
To me, that's the whole pie. I mean, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to learn how to talk to people.
Yeah.
If you just want to go into a professional occupation, whether it's a doctor or a lawyer or anything else like that, it certainly helps, especially a lawyer. But without talking to people and communicating, you're just not going to be able to share with the world the ideas you want to share and your business and sell whatever product or service you have to the market.
And regardless, you're selling yourself.
Yeah.
Every time. I think seek first to understand and then to be understood is so critical. And a lot of people miss that. And so those two types of courses were the most beneficial to me. And then as far as practical hands-on knowledge, taking accounting courses. I hated them at the time.
Yeah, likewise.
Oh my God, they almost killed me.
The worst.
But now knowing how to get into a Google Sheet and create a template, it's really helpful. So, but I mean, could I have spent 6 hours on YouTube University and found that out in a day instead of 6 weeks twice?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that tuition adds up, moving from Tennessee down to Florida, dorm, room, board, tuition. It's like the ROI, like what are we actually getting here?
Yeah, and the problem was I only did a dorm for a year.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
So that stacked up real quick.
Oh, yeah.
So back to Tennessee. That was where your first endeavor was. We mentioned, Kelsey and I have met a couple times, but we've been saving this story for the podcast, kind of what happened in college with your first business, how that panned out, and then how that transitioned into who you are and what you do today.
Let me take a sip before this one.
Take your time.
Yeah, so when I was at the University of Tennessee, again, I had come out of high school and I had already started 2 businesses and knew that I loved it. And I went through sorority recruitment. Just as you went to one of 2 SEC universities, if you graduated from this high school, you also joined a sorority or a fraternity when you went to that SEC. So I joined, I joined the recruitment for the sorority. And it was like a boot camp, just in terms of like the draining nature of it all. And I was trying to fit in where I didn't belong, but at the same time, you understand this too, being an only child, it's kind of like you're looking for family. Mm-hmm. And so I thought, okay, this will give me friends, this will give me family, this, everything. So I went through the process and my entrepreneur brain is already like, okay, this is wrong. This is wrong. Why are you guys still using paper? This is archaic. Why are things being done this way? Yes, these people are rating me, but why aren't you making it very apparent that I'm also rating them in my own eyes? So it was a very one-sided process when it should have been the complete opposite. So for me, that was like red flag, red flag. And then I got into one of the sororities. I got in late. I've never talked about this before. I actually got a girl into the sorority that I wanted to be in by talking to some of the sorority members and really talking her up. And she got in my spot because her GPA transferring in or coming in was higher. I found out later that the reason I got in late, if at all, is because they had someone drop out, but that she had taken my spot. So I had basically talked someone into
taking your position.
Yeah. And so that put me in a disadvantage when I came in the first place, because the chapter, there's this weird like energy when you aren't picked first. It's kind of like when you're in like middle school and you're getting picked for dodgeball and the last person standing and everyone's like, what's wrong with them? Do we want them on our team? And so that was the energy. And so tried very hard to connect. I made a lot of friends with people on the executive board, of course. But ultimately I spent a year there and realized it wasn't for me. I'll never forget the night before getting locked in. You had initiation night. Now everybody talks about it. It's this big ordeal. I remember sitting in the hallway waiting to be called down. And the people that were going to be our mentors in the sorority had written letters before, on their initiation night, a year prior. They had written a letter to who would be their future little sister in the sororities. So it was kind of like a foreshadowing, like a, I want you to know this, I don't know you now type of letter. And so they were handing these out and they were calling names to hand them out. And something was telling me, get up and leave. Because once you get initiated, you cannot join another sorority. Like if you drop out of an initiated sorority, you don't get to join another one. And I'd already known that like this one's probably not for me. So I'm sitting in that hallway and I'm like, I need to leave. And I'm gearing up to stand up and I'm just going to sneak out the back door and go home. And they called a name and there was this silence. And one of the girls said, oh, she dropped out. And everyone was like, oh my God, shame, shame, shame. Like it was, the energy was just, you could cut the tension with a knife.
She dropped out from that sorority or pledging
She dropped
period?
out from before she got initiated. This girl in my same pledge class decided she didn't want to be a part of it anymore. Essentially what I was just about to do.
Right.
And everyone was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I sat back down.
Right.
And it was probably the first time in my life where I had ignored an intuitive hit for other people's perceptions. I'm glad that I did stay because it led me to my first business.
It's a powerful feeling.
Yeah, it was.
Being rejected by the group, even if you're an extremely strong person, that overwhelming sense of, oh my God, if I make the decision that I'm thinking about making, it's going to be detrimental to my life.
Absolutely. Especially when all of your classes, 40 to 60%, depending on the class, is full of those same people. So you're just terrified. But
Well, and looking back, it's like, hey, college sorority, who gives a shit? You know what I mean? Like looking now, back then, it's like, well, I should have gotten up. Who cares? It's like what I did in middle school, whatever.
yeah, you're freshly coming off 17, going into 18. You're still a child, really. I'm glad that I stayed because at the end of that semester, when I finally did drop out, my idea came to me for the app that I ended up creating, which guided women through the sorority recruitment process. It was called a values-based analytical tool, and it helped people really reframe their mind around what truly mattered to them and finding a chapter to join. And so through that whole year, I didn't realize it, but I was coming up with a way to fix an organization. And to me, it was to fix an organization, you change who's coming in. And so the tool that I created helped people focus in on what truly mattered to them. You know, I can't tell you how many times I would contact a sorority and be like, hey, what are your philanthropy hours? Like, how many hours did you spend with your philanthropy last year? Because they're clapping in your face during recruitment and telling you, oh, we have the biggest philanthropic dedication you'll ever see. And they're like, what do you mean how many hours? And I'm like, okay, so what's your GPA? Like, what's your average GPA for your girl? I don't know. How much money did you raise for philanthropy last year? I don't know. And so it was those types of questions that needed to be asked to keep people responsible for what their mission truly was and to get women into the Greek life system asking and demanding those answers. You start to change an organization. And my goal was the ROI, right, of joining Greek life was connections in the future, better academic experience, all that kind of stuff. Where is it? And so the tool I was creating aimed to bring it out. So
really interesting. I remember going through Rush on the fraternity side and just, it's very kind of ambiguous. There's no information like that. I think on the guys side, it's more of like, you know, what type of bros do I want to hang around with? You know what I mean? I don't know that guys are as much interested in that. Although I should only speak for myself because, again, I was interested in like football, partying. That's all I wanted to do. Shame on me. That's stupid, right?
Well, I mean, you live and you learn.
College is not for that. I mean, there's plenty of guys that go to college for other purposes, but My point is, I remember it was ambiguous. So that's a super smart idea. So you implemented that. It sounds like what, your second semester?
So what I
Freshman
did,
year though, right?
that was my freshman year. I came up with the idea that right before the summer of my freshman year, and I was like, I'm going to create an app. Okay, you're 18.
Yeah.
What do you? And so I got in contact with somebody that was a developer in the United States. I posted on Facebook, on a Facebook group from my neighborhood. And this guy was like, yeah, I can do this for you. I've worked with Apple. I've done all this like impressive resume. And he's like, so we're going to need to have an exploratory phase. And I'm like, what is that? And he's like, I need to know exactly how the app needs to work. And so it's probably going to cost you about $15,000 to $20,000 to get this version ready for us to, it's essentially getting a beta test ready. And I said, okay, I don't have that. I've got some babysitting money. So I'm going to go online and I'm going to find a freelancer. I said, what if I take this whole concept to a freelancer and I have them come up with a beta and I bring that to you? Then there's no question about what it should look like and feel like. Will that save me money? He was like, yeah, it'll save you $15,000 to $20,000.
Wow.
I was like, cool. So I got on freelancers. I hired a guy from India named Rav, and I would go to that summer. I'd hired him, and I would go to class in the morning. I would come home, do homework, go to my part-time job at the mall, and then do homework, go to sleep, wake up at 4:00 in the morning, and answer questions that I had gotten through the app. And that went on for about 4 months, and I was exhausted. But yeah, that was the first step I took, and then I think that kind of started showing me that I didn't need to know how to code to create an app. I think so many people think that they have to understand the industry that they're in through and through to make a change. You don't. You don't have to sit on an uncomfortable chair to know it's uncomfortable. You can look at it and be like, no, it's just all plastic. I don't know about that. And then go sit in it. But you don't have to know how to create a chair to fix it. You need to know how to communicate it. And that was a really big lesson for me.
Wow. It almost reminds me of Rate My Professor. Like Rate My Professor was created. What?
Loved it.
Loved it.
Loved it. I lived on it.
Yeah, because it's a way for students to actually pick classes based on a professor. And oftentimes a professor is a huge part of, hey, do I want the 9 a.m. or the 8:30? What are we doing here? There was another app that was created when I was in college. I forgot the name of it, but it would rate boys. It would rate, I don't want to call them men, like college age kids, whatever. And girls would go on it and like search up guys, and it would be like the hot scale. He's got wandering eyes. It had like some more naughty shit on there, and like
It's terrifying.
It was bad to a point where it got insanely popular. The university got involved and actually got it shut down, but a girl created it.
I don't doubt it.
It was like this female-led app, and it spread from school to school, and it came and it went, and it was super quick. So as you're developing this, kind of how did the growth happen? And did you ever get a sense of like, holy shit, I'm the next Mark Zuckerberg? Like,
Oh, I 1,000,000% thought that I was.
Yeah.
So I didn't have the money to hire that developer from the States yet, but I came back to school the next year, my sophomore year, and I, with no experience, pitched the idea in the 2 entrepreneurship competitions at the school. And I won first place in both in 2 weeks.
Amazing.
$20,000 and in the high growth category and the innovative technology categories. And I was like, holy shit, this is real. My parents thought I was going to be like, we all thought that I was going to sell this thing off in a few years and be paying for their lifestyle. Like it was that level of, the things people were telling me. And so I had not an inflated ego, but inflated expectations. And through one of the competitions, the number one company in that space at the time that created technology for Greek life found me through a newspaper article. My hometown had put one out on me. And they reached out and we just started talking. But about 3 or 4 months after that, they reached back out and they said, we want to partner in some capacity. We want to help you take this national. And I was like, oh, it's happening. Yeah. And then, so that happened.
Pretty surreal experience for what, 19?
I was 19. Yeah.
Wow.
It was surreal, but it was expected. And I know that sounds crazy, but I have very high expectations for myself. and I feel that there's nothing I'm not capable of doing. That is a bit delusional, but it is also, I think, necessary for the world that we live in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it all happened very fast.
We were talking earlier before we started recording about how sometimes entrepreneurs or anyone in general who has a big idea gets caught up in the idea. Did you feel like at that young age you were just so caught up in the future and I could take it national and I just need to do this and do that? And sounds like you were on a more disciplined path.
Yeah. I think that I teetered back and forth. You know, somebody would say something and I'd get a big head. And then I was very fortunate to have a mentor from the university at the time that actually created the entrepreneurship program there. And he's like a grandfather to me this day. Like, he's texting me right now, him and his wife, they're coming in May, but he would see my head start inflating and he would get a needle and pop it. He'd be like, you know, don't get so big you can't touch the ground. And so he kept me in check, and that was very nice. Again, he was a professor at the time, so I could walk up to his office and run something by him and have instant feedback. I was so blessed for that.
Yeah, having great people, especially in a startup like that, is always good. So Greek Life, what was it, magazine, something like that?
It was a local newspaper from my hometown that had put that article out. But
put the article out, and then that national organization hit you up and wanted a collab.
Yeah, they wanted a partner. That was definitely a big moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it all came crashing down.
Uh-oh.
So
what happened?
Well, I need to get my timeline right, and I'm going to butcher it, but I've got the facts, I've got the receipts. It's okay if I don't get the number right. But about, I would say 6 months after that, I was gearing up to beta test, and I have to be careful about what I say because
Sure.
I cannot disclose who this person is, but I was gearing up to beta test with an organization about 6 months prior to that. They had already given the green light. Yes, we want you to beta test it. It was when I was still working with the guy overseas because I took the pitch money from those competitions and I paid the developer in the States. So at that time, when I was still working with the developer overseas and just had like a rough version, this organization was like, we can't wait for this. Like, we want you to bring this and to beta test it and all that good stuff. So the only thing we were waiting on was really me to get the product to them. And a little side note, the day I was supposed to beta test with that organization, the guy that I had been working with to do some design and graphics and stuff to really get the thing ready disappeared. Like the morning of, I had been gearing up for months to show this product to these girls, and he was gone, and I never heard from him again.
Holy shit.
Wild. So that night, this organization that I'm talking about was fully under the impression that I was coming the next day to beta test the rough draft of this app.
Yeah.
And then the guy ghosted me and never heard from him again. So 6 months later, when I had hired the developer in the States, I had won the pitch competition money, and the person wanted to partner with the big company, all that stuff, I went back to this organization I was supposed to beta test with. And they said, we sat down in a meeting room, and I was kind of getting feedback on the changes I had made for them. And I will never forget sitting there in this long table like this, about 5 or 6 people in there, and the director of this organization at the time looks at me and said, I just wish that you would let us buy it from you. And something in my stomach didn't sit right, but I was 19. And I thought, what a great compliment. Like, you would want to buy this from me? And I said, well, no, this is kind of my baby, and I want to launch this nationally so the playing field is equal at all universities for all Greek life, all this kind of stuff.
You hadn't really seen it through either.
No, I hadn't.
Yeah.
I had.
Like, why sell it when you haven't even really begun?
I was like 6 months
It's just
pregnant.
an idea.
You know what I mean? Yeah, like
Right.
It was not fully cooked. And so it didn't sit right with me. But again, I thought, oh, that's a compliment. It wasn't a compliment. So about a couple weeks after that, I'm sitting at the home of a woman that had offered to help me. She had experience with Greek life. And she looks at me and she goes, I haven't seen the app yet. I'm like, what? So I hand her my phone. I'm like, look. Oh, it still gives me chills. She looks across the table and she says, have you seen this organization's app? And I said, what app? I'm the only one. And she said, it's like very similar, like almost word for word. Are you sure you haven't seen this? And like the room started spinning. I was like, oh my God. And I realized that what that woman was doing was seeing if she could just pay me for it and not have to go do the work. But the second I said no, she thought, okay, well, we'll just go make our own. Yeah. Yeah.
Sneaky little snake.
Yeah. And
Wow.
I was patent pending at the time too. I'd taken some of that pitch competition money and went and filed a patent, and I was waiting to hear back from it. Didn't do anything. My attorney said, they have more money than God. You're not going to win this.
Now, you can't say what organization this is. Okay.
Eventually.
Wow. But big
I
enough
will.
to eventually you will. So this is kind of still an ongoing
It's not
litigation
ongoing.
of some sort.
It's not ongoing, but I will say that people in powerful positions within that organization know exactly what happened.
Of course.
And they have even said to people that were involved, yeah, I'm pretty sure that we stole it. Yeah.
Freaking sucks.
Yeah.
Freaking sucks. But you've pulled yourself up, moved on. This was a few years ago now.
Yeah.
So is that kind of part of the reason too why you left that school? Just because it was a
It was just
horrible
associated
taste?
with, even just being on the campus just reminded me of the things that I had been going through.
Now, I'm sure you explored this route. Didn't you go back to your entrepreneurial professors and program and say, these guys stole my idea, guys? Like, I sat here and pitched it. I won the competition. It's clearly my idea.
I did. And without saying too much, I can say that people that I really cared about, had they gone to, not even people associated with the university, all that kind of stuff, people that I cared about would have probably lost their jobs if they had spoken up.
Because this organization was so powerful.
And I was not willing to do that, especially for my very close mentor that was not tenured at the time and would not have had a retirement.
This family you've talked about. Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
It was, either fight and put your foot down and potentially leave a path of mass destruction behind you and compromise someone else's future that doesn't have the time that you do at their leisure to rebuild, or walk away.
Pretty insightful for 19 years old.
I think I was 20 at the time. So
20, even
yeah,
so.
I mean, it just felt like one of those pivotal moments in life where I could have thrown a teenage temper tantrum, or I could have held my head high and walked away knowing that one day I would come back and I would fix it.
And you chose the latter. Amazing. So you moved on from that, came down to Tampa. Now, how'd you find UT?
That day that I got off the phone with my attorney, they said, you have more money than God. You're not going to win this. My mother asked me what I was going to do. And I said, I'm just going to leave. I don't want to be in this apartment anymore. I don't want to be in this city. Anything associated with what happened, I don't want anything to do with it. And that was just for my mental health. And I got on my computer and I typed the words coastal colleges for entrepreneurs in Google. And Forbes popped up. They had just written an article in 2018 about Tampa being the #2 place for young entrepreneurs in the country.
Wow.
And there was just that one article, just one. And it was written very recently. And I'd never been to Tampa before. But I called my mom after going to the University of Tampa's website and seeing that they're very well known for accepting a bunch of transfer credits. A lot of universities cap it off. And I was like, what about Tampa?
Yeah.
And I'm very, very blessed to have incredible parents. My mom said, let's book a flight and go. I think she kind of recognized my whole life had just fallen apart in an hour, really. And so we flew out to Tampa and spent 3 days. I was still taking exams from the other university while I was here exploring this one. And I walked into the University of Tampa and they said, oh, we have your merit scholarship here. I was like, what scholarship? And the amount of money that I was being given, because Tampa's obviously a private college and, I was coming from a public university, the amount of money that I was being given to go to the University of Tampa equaled the amount of money that was the difference between my public college and this now private college.
Oh, wow.
And so it was just like, okay, there's
Makes sense.
I need to go. Yeah. So that's how I ended up in Tampa.
So you came down to the sunshine and palm trees. Amazing. And then that was just 1 year, senior year.
Yeah. And then the pandemic hit.
Oh my
I
God.
graduated late because some of the credits, a lot of them did transfer, but not all of them.
So your senior year was what, like fall 19, spring 20? Mm-hmm. Holy shit. So you're here for like what, 6-8 months, pandemic, alarm rings. Hey mom, what'd you do? Fly home or?
No, I wasn't leaving. I was not leaving. No one could have convinced me to go anywhere else. My parents were begging me to come home.
Right.
And I just said no. I was in an apartment. My lease wasn't up yet. And I felt very capable of handling. It was kind of a surreal feeling, though. I feel like a lot of people probably felt this to some degree. Like, it felt like an apocalypse was happening.
For sure, yeah.
And as terrifying as it was also very empowering for me to sit there and be like, I don't know anybody here, but I'm going to be okay.
You're on your own.
Like, I've got this. Like, whatever happens. And if something crazy happens, my dad will get in his truck and drive 10 hours and come get me. And if anybody's going to save me, it's him. So
damn.
I was staying. Yeah.
So kind of rode that out. And now, well, I guess there's some stuff in between, but
real estate investment, second app that never made it out to beta testing because the market changed during the pandemic.
The life of a young entrepreneur.
Spending time in a township in South Africa and hosting an entrepreneurship competition. Yeah, there's some stuff in between.
And the one on that island you were telling me about.
Yeah, that was before I moved here, that I lived in San Pedro, Belize for a period of time.
But that's the life of an entrepreneur, right? You essentially try things, and for whatever reason, if things don't work out, you can always ditch the idea or adjust, find new people, and kind of go along your own path. Now you've created Behind the Bay, the Behind series, which when I first saw it, this was released only a few weeks ago. I'm sure you've been working on it for quite some time. But when I first saw it, I thought, holy shit, finally someone's doing a TV show here in Tampa exploring everything you've talked about, the young entrepreneurs in the city, all the buzz going on. Someone's putting it in video. Obviously, there's like Tampa Tomorrow, which is a great Instagram page with information. There's a lot of different publications here, but no one has done what you are doing. So how did you come up with the idea?
So I think the first kind of version of what you see today was created in 2021. I decided, you know what? The things that got me out of my dark hole of, oh my God, I've had 2 failed businesses. I'm 22 years old, whatever I was. I thought, well, I guess I was 24. The pandemic sucked time out. I don't know where it went. No, for real.
It was like a 2-year black hole.
Yes.
Gone.
So I don't know how old I was or when this happened, but when the dust settled from moving here, I was kind of drained. I thought, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't be an entrepreneur if it's this devastating, right? And then I spent time in a township in South Africa, in Cape Town. And I spent 8 days there, and I hosted a pitch competition for entrepreneurs. And I spent time in a place that was, on the surface, the community members and I wouldn't have much in common. We grew up across the world from each other in very different backgrounds, different culture, all that. I mean, every differentiating factor between myself and in them was present, but I had never felt more at home. And there were such intimate, close bonds formed very quickly, and it was because of entrepreneurship. And we realized that a lot of our experiences were shared. And it didn't matter if they were selling street food or running a taxi cab business. It didn't matter, because every single day they had to wake up and convince themselves that they were worth it, that they were capable, that they were prepared even when they weren't. And that right there is like a human existence common thread. And so I think the idea was born then. But about 2 years ago, I created a podcast called Traditionally Incorrect. And I did trademark that, and I will use it at some point. But it was about people unsubscribing from society's expectations and what they accept as a traditionally acceptable lifestyle. And so that was essentially the same thing, like entrepreneurs sharing the authentic journey of entrepreneurship. And then I couldn't figure out how to make the audio and video sync. in the show. And for some reason, I let that mean that I wasn't capable of putting the content out there, which is the dumbest thing in the world. But honestly, I think it was great because it kept me from releasing too much. And then about 2 months ago, the team came into my life that I needed to really reinvent this and get it out there and get the production quality to where it needed to be. And yeah, that's what's been
awesome.
happening.
That's like that's kind of like what we've done here. I mean, we're not even 10 episodes in with this show, and we've had to figure out 3 different camera systems and sound issues, editing issues, all that sort of stuff. But I think if the idea is there, and as long as you're making progress, you can kind of look back and over the course of a few weeks or a few months, look and say, wow, I've gone from 0, or I've gone from just an idea to whatever I have today. And that can give you a little bit of confidence. I've also been to Africa. My dad took me to Africa when I was 16 years old. And we did, I don't know, we didn't do much philanthropy. I think we gave out some T-shirts and some food to some of the locals. Mostly we were there for hunting, and we did a wine tour. We were there with a couple other guys. I think it was the first time I ever had alcohol. Maybe 16. It was right around that time when we were all exploring. But I remember thinking like, holy shit, I am so glad I live in America. And every time life gets hard now, I'm 30 years old, I still look back and I think, I'm stupid if I don't go for it. Like, I'm stupid if I don't figure out a way to make this business work or this idea work, or go up to that guy, shake his hand and introduce myself. Like, I'm an idiot if I let that opportunity slide. The fact that we even live in this country that allows us to explore these ideas and be an entrepreneur, how dare you not take advantage of that?
Yeah.
You mentioned that you being in Africa kind of gave you that feeling.
Absolutely.
You came back to America, you've started this show. To me, I freaking love it. Can we play, Tyler? Do you have some sort of a trailer we could play on the show, and then you could kind of talk about it?
Yeah, so scroll down. I'll show you which one to click. I would say...
I love everything about what you guys have done, the branding, the vibe. I mean, really, really impressive quality.
Yeah, so I think if we do the... actually, you know what? Scroll up just a little bit.
You've got the YouTube link too in the bio.
I'm looking for the one. Scroll down a little bit more. I'm so sorry. There's one on here that it kind of bounces back and forth. Well, let's play the one that says the money is all over, so you can kind of see the style of content. And
the vibe of it.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of them think that money is so necessary, which it is, but it's out there. It's everywhere, because the money is all over. You need the belief in here and the paper to prove to the money
So we take
that
these
this will pay
little
off.
gems that entrepreneurs share.
Yeah.
And we put them on social media, but there are full interviews as well.
Right. Yeah, this is your short form content. You know, it's actually funny. I was there with my wife like the night you released that little clip, and I was like, holy shit, there's the owner of the place. Awesome.
Oh, wow.
So that was kind of cool too. I also love the fact that you are doing this local.
Yes.
And I think you've said before, you know, you might have ambitions to expand outside of that.
Yeah, I love traveling.
Yeah.
You know, and when I was in Cape Town, I think the biggest 2 things I took away from it were I find my passion in helping others realize theirs. Mm-hmm. And my biggest fear in life is untapped potential. And so if I can create something, build a platform that wakes people the F up to the fact that we are here for a very short amount of time. The days may drag on, but the years go by very fast. And that you are way more capable than you give yourself credit for, and that, you know, all the things we've been told are lies. All the rules are lies. And then the second thing would just be that we have no excuse, like you said. You know, every single day that my really good friends that still live in Cape Town, they would wake up and they would hit the streets with muffins and sell them door to door. And their story, and I'll get into it another time, is very, very inspiring. But they've shared with me how difficult it truly is to start a business there and to receive funding and to seek partnerships, all we have to do is get on Instagram, not to say they don't have Instagram, but get on Instagram and slide in the DMs of somebody that is a capital, an investor here. And you could get a meeting in like 5 minutes.
It's very true.
Yeah.
And that goes for any type of business too. Whether you're selling real estate or you're selling t-shirts, whatever it is, you can create a brand in a company relatively easily, set yourself up on social, and start making sales. People need to understand, though, that things take time. Quality things take time. I've kind of looked back at my life and some of what I perceive as failures, but I think that some of the failures in life are really more of blessings, because you kind of learn maybe where you're not supposed to be. Like I had always a dream of doing something in law enforcement or the legal field. My dad was a judge here for 20 years, so I kind of grew up in law. And I always had the thought of like going into the FBI or being a cop or a lawyer or just something like that. And during the pandemic, right before the pandemic, I was studying to go to law school. I was studying the LSATs. And pandemic hit, LSATs got pushed, like the shit show ensued. But I eventually got into school in Jacksonville. The first semester was, started like August 2020. It was online. It was virtual law school. Same thing as in person, just on camera, right? So you still have to get dressed up. It's still by the clock. It's still by the book. Everything is proctored. Like they actually did a very good job as quickly as things transpired to make it as air quote, like legit as possible. That first semester I did really well. I loved it. I studied property law and criminal law, and I was just freaking digging it. And it was about the same time the real estate market was taking off. And I had my current company, Greco Real Estate, and I had been in business 4.5 years. And I just saw the real estate market taking off, and I wasn't really a part of it. I was kind of dabbling in it. I did a couple deals while I was in law school, but obviously law school is a full-time commitment, and I would have had to finish another 2.5 years. So I made this super hard decision at the end of that semester, putting that to bed. Yeah. I left law school and just decided, you know what, I'm going to build the real estate company. I'm going to go for it. So in a lot of ways, I've thought about, God, it's a failure. Like I went into law school and I didn't complete it. I walked away from it. But sometimes when I look at the team we've created here and our brand, and I look around at this beautiful office we've created, kind of like what I mentioned before about an idea turning into reality, I kind of look back at law school like, thank God you explored that ambition and the idea, because now hey man, that's not your purpose, bro. Like, your purpose is to create this real estate company.
There is no such thing as failure.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And I think one of the biggest things that we can do as a favor to ourselves is practice the discipline of freaking the absolute F out in a moment of uncertainty. Because think back on your life. For every failure you had, you can kind of connect the dots of how that specific moment led you down a path that was going to be better for you in the end. Mm-hmm. It's just the discipline required mentally to see that in the moment, even when you're freaking out and you want to just start flailing around. If you can develop that skill, you're unstoppable, really. So it sounds like you ended up where you were meant to be.
I think so. But I think that every entrepreneur needs to understand that, hey man, like hey woman, if your first deal doesn't work out, don't worry about it. Move on to the next thing, the next idea. But going back to what we said in the beginning of the conversation, don't let the ideas consume you. Execute on those ideas.
Yeah, I always say that you have to walk, it's like a tightrope. You have to walk a very fine line as an entrepreneur, especially a serial entrepreneur. And it's that tightrope of being just crazy enough, being just delusional enough to think, oh my God, imagine what I could create. And also have that grounded in reality. It's, okay, I've got this big vision. Don't get so tied up in all the little, minute details of what that's actually going to take to bring to fruition, as people will start projecting on you and, you're going to have to do this and you're going to have to, and it's going to be a nightmare, because that's where 99% get stopped in their tracks. Mm-hmm. So you have to be a little delusional, But you also have to be grounded in reality to know that, okay, there are going to be hard moments, and pivoting is critical to the longevity of a business. And when those moments come, I trust myself enough to identify them and to move forward in whatever direction needs to be taken. But to be aware that those hardships are going to come, because I think that a lot of them, either they get into it and they're too delusional and one little roadblock hits and they're, oh my God, this isn't meant for me. I'm just not good enough. And they quit. Or they get into it and they are a little too realistic and they think of every little thing they're going to have to do. And they think too far in advance, too detailed and analytically about a situation to where they never get started. So you just have to constantly get back on that tightrope of be delusional, but be realistic in your delusion. I mean, it's
that walking that tightrope is so insightful. That, I swear, has been the theme Tyler and I have explored really the last 2 weeks, because kind of Tyler's the producer of the show, but he also works with me in real estate. So Tyler's kind of job is to build out lists of investors and developers and send them properties that they might be looking for. You know, he's got a teammate as well. So it's two of these young guys, and they are in acquisitions, right? So they are meeting investors, developers, finding out what they need and sending them properties. Of course, these young guys, they're 20 years old. We're going to get 3 more people on board, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And they get so excited. And kind of at the same time they were doing that, a couple people were taking up a lot of their time. And I said, hey guys, you know, you need to have a boundary with some people. You need to kind of shift focus and not necessarily be reaching too much into the future, and remember that the job you're doing is the most important thing. Yeah. So walking that fine line has been really a theme in our personal business the last couple of weeks. So it's interesting you brought that up.
It's identifying where that line is too,
Yeah.
you know, and every single day people say like move the needle forward. A needle is very small. I want to move the ball to the other side of the court, you know, like
Right.
identifying what those things are to be able to say, I moved mountains today. Sometimes moving mountains can be reaching out to that person you're afraid to, you know, and I would love to share this little side story. When I was living in Belize, there was a woman that walked in at the resort. Well, when I visited Belize for the first time, it was the first time I'd ever gone out of the country, you know, with my parents. And this woman walked into the room at the resort we were staying at, and every single person at this long table, probably about 15, stood up and like waited for her to sit down. And I'm going to readjust this really quick.
Sure.
Because it is coming off my head. So this woman
There we
walks in, and everyone stands up. They're all looking at her, and I'm like, who the hell is that? Because that right there was boss shit. And we find out that she's the creator of the resort. Like, she owns it outright. And my mom's like, well, let's slide her a napkin, you know, and like see if she'll meet with us. My mom has been an incredible example of just doing it.
Yeah.
Like doing it scared and just not believing that anything is off limits. And so she wrote on a literal napkin, would love to borrow 5 minutes of your time. And the woman was only in town for 12 hours and agreed to meet us. And so that was a really great example for me of moving the ball forward, because that meeting, my mom got to ask a lot of questions. My mom's always wanted to develop resorts, and, you know, in retirement, she'll never actually retire. But that was like invaluable for her. And so knowing what the ball is and how to move it is so critical. And then staying on that tightrope and not getting shiny object syndrome, which we all suffer from, you know, and the more you do, the more positive momentum you gain, the more opportunities that come. And if you identify what your tightrope is of alignment with the future vision, the less likely you are to jump on the shiny object, because it can distract you from your true purpose.
Sounds like you get a lot of your spirit from your mom.
I think we're twins. Yeah, she's definitely an incredible. Both my parents are. They're both incredible. They've been together for 27 years now.
Amazing.
Not without the highs and the lows, right? Everyone has them, but they are incredible people, and I give them all the credit in the world for giving me the, not that anyone needs it, but the permission to fully express who I am and to not apologize for it. So I could not be more blessed.
I feel the same way about my mom. She, I think my dad is a little bit more risk adverse, kind of like, he was in politics and a lawyer, like I said before. So he kind of always pushed me to, like, he wanted me to be a bailiff in the court system. That's like 44 grand a year, work for the sheriff's department. I had a lot larger ambitions. And my mom's always been the person that's like, any idea that I've ever had in my entire life, she's like, go for it, do it, go for it. And I think that for a long time, she was the only voice that was telling me that. So I'm super blessed I had her in my life.
Her voice became your subconscious.
Yes. Yeah.
So did my mother's.
And then even today, even decisions I make, I can still, and thank God my mom's still with me, you know, knock on wood and everything. But I'm lucky to still have my mom. I talk to her all the time. But Cody's pregnant. My wife is pregnant. And having a son, you know, he's due May 30th here in like a month and a half. And going into that new little life with like, man, I'm going to encourage that kid to do anything. I think encouragement is so vital. Anytime you look at anyone successful who's an entrepreneur, business owner, it always seems like, you know, it might not be a parent, but they've always had, whether it was a mentor, grandma, whoever it was in their life that was always offering them encouragement. I think people need encouragement.
They do.
And I think that's why this show is going to be extremely popular, because a lot of people can look at this that don't have parents like we do. Thank God we have the parents we have. A lot of people don't have that mentorship. And I think that looking at like Jeff Gigante, how do you say? Gigante. Looking at a guy like that who's created the restaurant brands here in Tampa, they're extremely popular. That guy is such a hustler and an inspiration. Hearing his story and hearing some of the things that he says about doubt and pushing past that doubt. I know you've done an episode with him. I think it's encouraging, even for a guy like me that has a mentor like my mom. I can't imagine if you have no one and finding a show like this, it must be super encouraging.
I have to correct myself. It's Gigante. But I hope that this show, because you're right, we are blessed beyond belief to have built-in mentors as parents, right? And a lot of people do not have that privilege. And I'm hoping that this show, to all ages, becomes that supportive parent, that supportive friend, that mentor, that even if you're not speaking directly to these people, you're able to see that regardless of the industry, regardless of the life that these people are living, the way they were raised, who they associate with, what they know, we can learn from all of them. And they all have very similar highs, lows, trials, tribulations. It's human experiences. And the only difference between a wildly successful entrepreneur and one that no one has ever heard of is the ability to fail and fail forward. And so I'm hoping that this provides a platform for that.
I love it. And so where are we kind of at on the show? How many episodes are you at?
We've got, the way we do our content is a little different, and we're about to drop our first official episode.
Got it.
Every episode has 3 different entrepreneurs, and they're from 3 different industry categories. We have product and service, we have arts and creative, and then we also have hospitality. And so what that does is allows people to get insight from 3 different types of people with different experience levels to give feedback. And what you start to notice is there are patterns. And so we have 4 episodes for that style where it's 3 different entrepreneurs in one. But then we also have long form content where it's the solo interview of that person that will also drop. So we've got 5 terabytes of content right now, and we're sifting through them and getting the edits done. Yeah, sounds like a nightmare.
5 terabytes, Tyler.
Yeah.
Your computer would be, it'd be like one of those cartoons on Tom and Jerry, just blow it like a TNT explosion.
Yeah, no thanks.
That ain't gonna happen.
It's literally terrifying.
Pull up that real quick, Tyler, the reel you posted with Jeff.
Oh yeah, that one's a great one.
I watched that 127 times.
Oh, so you're all the views. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. I would say the same thing to Tyler.
It's the one that, scroll up a little bit. It says, go down.
I think it's the one with
It's
Never Too Late.
That's Never Too Late.
The one that I'm talking about was ask your mentor
This is it.
at what point
Did they want to give up?
they wanted to give up.
This
Yes.
is
So what would your best piece of advice be to entrepreneurs out there? Maybe they are looking to open a restaurant, maybe they're young and they just don't quite know what they want to do, but they know they want to create something. What is something that maybe you wish you had been told sooner, or something you've learned over the years?
I started my new company, Next Level Brands, at 50, and I feel like I have endless amounts of time. Whatever you're looking to do, find whoever is crushing that area within your demographic and get in front of those people, whether you're buying them a coffee or buying them a breakfast or just saying, listen, it's a 15-minute informational interview. I'm not really looking for anything. I just want to pick your mind. And then what I would ask them if I got in front of them is, when did you want to quit?
Now, a guy like that, him saying that tells me he wanted to quit many times throughout his life. Now, you've done a full interview,
He's
obviously,
owned
with him.
over 30 restaurants. Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah.
I only know 2, right? For Beachy.
Yeah.
And then Boulan.
And then he's got Union as well. But I think that tells you 2 things. A lot of the times people will look at entrepreneurs like you're crazy until you're a genius. Always. And so I'm sure that he's had people in times in his life where he's like, I want to own all these different restaurants. People are like, you're crazy. Now people look at him and they're like, Jeff said that?
Right.
Then he's a genius. So it's persevering until you get to that level. But it's like he just said, it's never too late to go out and to pursue your dreams. But you never know which destination is the one that's going to be the most successful, right? So over 30 restaurants, and now everyone knows who he is. I'm sure for his first 10, people still wouldn't recognize him on the street. Now, oh my God, it's Jeff.
Right.
And his name carries weight and respect, and it's just failing forward over and over and over again, or in his case, not failing, but just getting better and better and better. He did speak about one of his failed ventures in the interview, which was great. And so I can't wait for people to hear about that, because I think, again, when people get really successful, a lot of the times people will say, oh, you must be lucky, right? And it's not luck. It's just pure determination and hard work. And so I'm excited for him to share, even when I think people think there's a magic button in life where a certain amount of money, a certain career, a certain partner, everything is easy. And like you've arrived at this perfect state of being, and that you're happy for the rest of your life and you're secure. It does not matter how much money you have, how much success you've acquired. There are still everyday problems that person is encountering. And so I think Jeff's a great testament to, I'm very successful, but here are my hardships. And like, this restaurant failed, and it was because not enough due diligence was done, and we got kind of distracted by the shining object syndrome. And so these people coming on this show that maybe people haven't heard intimate stories like that, authentic stories, is really going to open their eyes and show them that every single person has the shit that they've been through.
They're going to think, oh, it was hard for him too. And it's hard for me right now. And if it's hard for him and he did it, why can't I?
Exactly.
I think it's really interesting how you're kind of gripping 3 different businesses and relating each one of their stories to one another. How did you come up with that idea? I love that. That's cool.
So for me, it has always been back to my time spent in South Africa. On the surface, we didn't have much in common just from the way we were raised and the hardships that we faced every day. And I realized that entrepreneurship united us. And those struggles in entrepreneurship were something that we could it was like a common language. And so I've always said entrepreneurship is a universal language. And so the concept for this episode style that you're going to see came to me when I'd always known I wanted to interview people from all different industries. I just hadn't thought about yet putting them together in a way that was engaging and really identified that pattern of like, okay, everybody has issues. Everybody goes through shit. How do they get through it? And, what is the advice that they would have either given their former selves in that moment or would give to you? And so sometimes I call them downloads. Ideas come to me that I'm not even trying to have an idea. It's just like my mouth starts moving before I even realize it is. And so I was just talking to part of my team and I was like, yeah, and the episode should be, the 3 different entrepreneurs from the different industry categories, and these are the industry categories, and then, blah, 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 blah. And we sat down together and figured out a storyline that would have made that make sense and be relevant to today's viewer in a way that is fast-paced and engaging and all that kind of stuff. So It really came as a download. And then again, a lot of the best ideas, they are fine-tuned by collaboration. And that's what happened here.
Now you have not released the full episode 1.
Not the official with
Not
the
the
3
official
people.
one.
And that will come next week.
Next week.
Yeah, we're not putting an exact release date on it.
I was going to ask.
Just because
okay.
we want it to be, we have motion graphics to add to it. We just want it to be as good as it possibly can, because once you can't make a first impression twice.
True.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So you're a little bit playing the long game where you want it to look how you want it to look before it's released. You're not in a rush. You're not trying to, okay, next Friday is the deadline, and you just want it to look the way you want it to look.
Yeah.
I think that's good.
We getting the content out in the short form, there's definitely like, there's a deadline. This has to be done. We have to get the content out there. But in our society that we live in today, you post that official episode and someone watches it once, right? Like you don't get very many repeat viewers. But you just said, I watched that reel 100 something times. Short form content is king. Mm-hmm. And so if there's anything that we're going to focus heavily on, it's getting that short form content out.
Yeah. I mean, 5 terabytes, you guys certainly have plenty of that, right?
Every time I open it up, I get a little bit of a panic attack, but it's okay.
That's enough to sift through for sure. And it looks like you guys have already done a lot of interviews actually. So I'm sure at this point it's editing and just getting it all out there and making it look pretty, right? The fun part.
Yeah.
Now, besides the show, you mentioned a little bit of real estate that
Yes.
you do. So tell me about that.
So I am actually we need to talk later. I'm looking to invest again. I did before the pandemic. So I was actually very blessed. I have never, again, I don't live a traditional lifestyle. I have never wanted to have a big wedding. And I don't want children either. Shocker. Just bring on the comments. I've never wanted a big wedding, and my parents have known that. That's never been my priority. And so when I was graduating college, they said, we believe you that you're not going to want this big wedding, and we feel that in your entrepreneurial path that you're on right now, you might benefit from making investments instead. And so they offered to help me acquire a flip property, because they're both in real estate. My mother is the #1 builder in Nashville, Tennessee, for the last 5 years. No college degree. She's been featured in Architectural Digest. She's a badass. My dad also flips houses and has been in multifamily, developments and all that kind of stuff for years.
I don't remember if you sent it to me or you mentioned your mother's company, but I looked it up. Tyler, do you mind pulling that up just so people can see the quality of your mom's work?
Build Nashville.
Build Nashville.
Yes.
It's on Instagram, Tyler. And just so people understand, real estate development, when you build single family homes, it's so much further than a business. She's an artist.
Yeah.
What she creates is art. It's absolutely incredible. Your mom's talent for design and architecture is amazing. I wish she'd come here. We need more.
She's going to. And,
Good.
She would kill me if I didn't say this, and I would, be upset too. She has an incredible team. And I think that, yes, a lot of what you're seeing is a product of my mother, but it is also a product of the people she surrounded herself with. Her business partner, his name is Sean. He is also incredibly talented. They're designers, they're architects. Everyone that they work with is really a master of their craft. And I think that finding those types of people is a true reflection of who you are at your core as an entrepreneur as well. I mean, you can't be a shitty person with a shitty product and reach out to the best of the best and have them want to work with you. And so her ability to pull these incredible minds together is honestly even more impressive than what she's capable of on her own.
So mom is a badass home builder. Does mom have a GC or is she a developer?
Her business partner has his license.
Got it. So mom's doing that. Daughter is also a badass. Where does dad fit in the mix?
He helps her a lot. Like he's on call basically all day, every day. And he also invests in property too. We've got
very cool family business.
Yeah. They have multifamily property in St. Petersburg.
Amazing.
I manage that. And then, so long story short, right before the pandemic hit, they said, okay, go find a flip. And again, very blessed. And so having never done it myself, but I mean, I was 9 years old getting picked up from school saying, are we going to go look at a foreclosure today? Like, why do I know what that is? And so it was a weird situation. I found somebody that was a wholesaler here. We went to lunch. He was around my age. We really hit it off, and I wasn't actively looking. I just knew I believe in manifestation. with action, right? I think if you set your intentions and you put action behind it, you will attract what you need. I wanted to graduate with a business, not like a full, an idea, concept, and innovation, and a certain amount of money in my bank account. And so I just kept repeating that number in my head. And after lunch with this wholesaler, he contacted me like 3 days later, and he was like, we've got this property in Town and Country, and here are the specs on it, blah, 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 blah. It's a silent bidding process. And I'm like Googling silent bidding process. Like I had no idea. And so I show up, and I'm in, blonde hair, blue-eyed, Barbie.
Everyone's like, who's this chick?
Yeah, there's like 5 big guys there.
Right.
Yeah, they're looking at me like, idiot.
Yeah.
So it was a house that was going to go into foreclosure if they didn't sell it. And they were there in the house. And that's a very sad situation to be in. And so everyone was walking through the house, and I was talking to the owners, hey, you guys have a beautiful home. Like, I'm so grateful that I'm able to come look at it, blah, blah, blah. And again, these guys are like, why is she even talking to him? Blah, blah, blah. Assholes.
Yeah.
So I kind of in that realized that they were greatly underestimating me. Again, my parents had no idea that I was even looking at this house. And I think what they were asking was $161. That was the starting bid. And in walking through there, I was like, all right, they think I'm an idiot. That's perfect. So I walked outside, and I'm talking to the guy that brought me there, and I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to do like 161.5 really loud. And they were all listening. I wasn't looking at them, but I could feel the eyes. I didn't think anything of it. And I wrote down, I think it was $165 and $75.23. And I don't know why, $75.23. But I left, and 10 minutes later, he called me and said, you'll never effing believe it. You won by $75.23.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So I bought this house, this 4-bedroom plus an office, 3-bath, 1,800 square feet, giant backyard, enclosed heated pool house.
Damn.
For
This was 2020, right?
5,000, yeah. And as soon as the pandemic hit, my boyfriend and I, who had only been seeing each other for 6 months, looked at each other. We met out here 7 months after both of us moved here, and realized that we had the same cell phone area code and grew up 30 minutes down the street from each other in Nashville.
Wild.
His dad's in insurance and insures my mother's subcontractors and has for years. Yeah.
Crazy.
His mother's name is Darcel. She goes by Darcy, and my dog's name is Darcy. Weird. Anyway, I look at him, and I'm like, I guess we're moving into the flip house, because my lease was ending, his lease was ending, the world was ending.
Yeah.
And we had this backyard. I mean, no one couldn't take my dog to a dog park. They were all shut down. And I was like, the carry costs on this are very low. We're just going to gut the bathrooms. When we had, I had ripped out the wall in the kitchen and some other stuff, and really just done cosmetic upgrades for the most part. I was like, we got to get those bathrooms out now, because I was going to just do like a little,
right.
Flip it and
Quick
get out.
flip, yeah.
And so we moved in and lived there through the pandemic. So we had a pool, we had a backyard, we had offices.
Did you run the show as far as the subcontractors?
Yes.
Really?
So I found them.
So you didn't just hire a GC and say, here, I want this, and he just takes care of it. You actually ran the job site?
I talked to a GC. He gave me the names for his subcontractors. I vetted them out. I hired them. I told them what to do. I picked the materials. I showed up every other day and checked on the, everything, with no experience. And yeah, we moved into that. We stayed there through the pandemic. If you want to get to know somebody, lock yourself in a house.
No shit.
For 7 months straight.
Yeah.
Order board games, like card games, that ask the most intimate questions of someone ever, which we did. You will get to know the real person very quickly. And it was the best thing that ever happened to us.
Y'all went through the true test. That's for sure.
Yeah. And it was beautiful. I mean, honest to God, it was amazing. But you're talking about when you decided that you wanted to go full force into real estate and get out of law school, when the market started to just blow up. I was also developing another app at the time for the real estate market, for a market where people had a lot of choice in what they were buying. No one had a choice anymore. It was you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. So that app, it was ready for beta test, was dead on arrival. But what wasn't dead was Town and Country, which was suddenly top 9 fastest growing zip codes in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
No one saw that coming when I first bought that house.
No.
So I bought that house for about $165. I think I ended up putting 60 into it. We had to torch the yard and do irrigation and all that kind of stuff. Lived there for a year and a half. I sold it with all of my furniture inside for $380,000.
Yeah, you made 120.
Yep.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I was like, if anybody gets bit by a bug, it's this way, you know. But then the flip market was a little harder after the pandemic, and I'm definitely looking to get back into it. But it's just
but you got the Airbnb in St. Pete.
So they're short-term rentals, but I have 11 of them. And so they're little bungalows. They stand alone. We do a lot of travel nurses and traveling professionals. Again, I had no experience.
So we have that listed. Gina, shout out Gina Presta, one of my agents, has that listed for you. I get calls on that damn thing all the time.
Oh my God, I have to fight people off.
It's insane.
I
Like
know.
the office number is listed on there. I think it has to be. Yeah. So my phone's ringing. Hey man, are you the landlord over here at whatever address this is? And I'm like, here's Gina's
so
number,
sorry.
man. No, it's all good. What a beautiful little property
Thank
though.
you. Yeah.
So your parents bought that
it was a family project.
family project.
Yep. So I designed
so
them.
cute.
Yep. I designed them. And
Do you have a
mother.
page on that? Do you advertise that
You know
at all?
what? I actually do, but I don't think anything's live on it. But it's called the Berg Bungalows.
Oh, I'd love to show it.
It's BURG.
The coolest little build. I'd love to do a project like that.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You know,
And
it's the
Airbnb, or what do y'all do?
we
Short
do
term,
90-day minimums.
90-day minimum.
Okay, it's the second one down, but I don't know I don't think there were any photos on there.
No.
There's not, because I haven't needed it. I thought I was going to need to heavily market those things.
Hell no.
I bet when I turn my phone back on, I'm going to have 40 messages. Like, it's insanity.
And when did y'all buy that one?
I think they bought that. I feel like it's been almost a year and a half, 2 years now.
So they bought it right.
Yeah.
They bought it in a good time.
Yeah.
Renovated the whole thing, made it cute, staged it.
I was there with that job site a lot too. You know, it's since I've moved here, I've lived in 3 different houses, all which needed work. And so I lived through renovations at my flip house. I lived through renovations at their second home because I moved in there after I sold the house while I was looking in Tampa. And now I own a 102-year-old bungalow, and we all know how that goes here.
That's very true.
Yeah.
So you still got that, and how many units is that bungalow over
11.
there? 11 unit little bungalow project. You guys got that. You've sold the town and country, and then there was another new development you were talking about.
Yes.
New construction.
So this is when I first moved to Tampa, within 6 months, I realized I wasn't leaving. And I was like telling my mom and again, no experience. I'm pulling up maps and I'm literally street by street circling where I think it's going to be the next hotspot. And I'm like, you know, a mile behind Armature Works, Tampa Heights. It's a no-brainer. Riverside Heights is already blown up. It's topped out in terms of, you know, market price and appreciation and XYZ until the pandemic hit, and it went up even more. It's a little overpriced now, in my opinion. In my non-professional.
You're probably right.
In my non-professional opinion.
Yeah.
But hey, value is perception, right? So whoever perceives it.
Yeah.
So I saw Tampa Heights, and I thought, this is it. This little square or rectangle is going to blow up because there's only so many directions that downtown can expand in before it runs into water, and it's already tapped out on the channel side. And North Hyde Park, Soho, all that kind of stuff is already pretty expensive. And I was like, this is it. And so my mom listened to me. It's, again, I don't know if it's only child syndrome or just me demonstrating over the years that I might know a thing or two or have good intuition.
Or both.
Yeah, we started looking, and we got a property that was a builder was selling it because they were going to build their personal home on it, and the wife decided they wanted more land, and it's less than a mile behind Armature Works in Tampa Heights.
Less than a mile behind Armature Works in Tampa Heights, and how big is the site?
God, it's been a while since I dealt with this. I think it was 5 or 6 total feet in width. Too narrow for an RS50 lot, but we did not know that.
RS50 minimum is 50 wide.
Yes.
So 45
So it was
feet wide.
44, 45 feet wide. Yeah.
Okay.
And so we didn't know that. Again, when we bought it, it was marketed as ready to build. And what we ended up figuring out is that, so we had site plans, the drawings were ready. The city said, we actually went through a variance request and got the setbacks on the sides reduced so that we could increase the building envelope, and that got approved. And then the city said, all right, green light, go ahead and build. And we were about to break ground, and they said, wait. This is an illegal, non-conforming lot. And we're like, what are you talking about? And they're like, well, your neighbor subdivided her property and sold it to the people that you then bought it from. And those people were told that this was an illegal, non-conforming lot prior to selling it to you, but we couldn't prove it. And so the city said, you've got to go through a rezone. You've got to get a PD, a planned development. And my parents were working in Nashville, way too much going on, stressed out. And they said, good luck.
Damn.
Go rezone it. And so I had to then figure out how to rezone a property. And so that was a good 6 months of my life. But again, it was during the pandemic. So I did have the time to really sit down and figure it out. Someone needs to overhaul that process because it's archaic.
Yeah.
It's archaic.
And I think they should change a lot of the codes anyway. I think they should get rid of some parking minimums. I actually think Nashville did that not that long ago. They got rid of parking minimums in their downtown core.
Yes.
And it enables developers to go in and build a little bit more density. Plus, you don't have those ugly, huge parking garages everywhere.
It encourages urbanism and urban dwelling.
But that's what we want. That's what young people want.
What we want.
Yeah.
You know?
So you went through that process, successful.
Yeah. PD.
Got it done. So your land's entitled.
The city recognizes my face when I show up.
I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So got it PD. You've got plans ready to go.
Yep.
Amazing.
We're about to build it and sell it. Sadly, I was emotionally attached to that property. But I bought our current house at 3.25% interest rate. When am I going to, 3.25%? Like, I'm never selling that thing. And so for me, I don't get much more out of that house in terms of space in the backyard, the parking situation, the square footage, all that, to justify build costs being where they're at, the time to build being where it's at, and the interest rates being where they're at again. So.
Well, and it sounds like you probably bought the lot right. I'm sure you've made a couple $100,000 on just the lot alone.
Yeah. I wouldn't have to, if I did build, I wouldn't have to come to closing with any down payment because we would have the equity in the property to use that. Yeah.
Awesome.
So there's that. I mean, I could still do that, but again, it just doesn't make sense.
No. And right now, are you still in that little bungalow you mentioned?
Yes.
Amazing. Now, that was another project you kind of did, but you're living in it.
I did very purely cosmetic stuff to that. So I taught myself how to install security systems, change light fixtures, paint. I did a lot of that work myself just because why not? If you can do it, do it.
Is real estate for you a passion project, or can you see yourself digging a little bit deeper into that space?
Investment, yes.
Yeah.
Sales and none of that.
I wouldn't recommend that.
Yeah.
There's too many realtors in town here anyway.
Yeah, no, trust me, you don't want me as one either. That's why I've never gotten my license because I cannot, what is it called? There's a rule in real estate where you've got to tailor what you're going to say and not.
Well, you have to be careful. There's fair housing laws. I think you're a little bit, you have a higher, more power is the wrong way to put it, but you're a little bit more free if you don't have a real estate license, because then you're just a principal. You can go and do what you need to do. You don't have, not that you're unethical, but you don't have ethics, a code of ethics to abide by, and all this.
I can be like,
kind of,
that's a shit area that's not appreciating right now.
Exactly.
Just not in terms of like, oh, it's a gross area.
There'd be a big problem if I said that.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not saying like, oh, the people that live there aren't great. I'm just saying like, the appreciation is not there yet. If you put your money there, it's going to sit for a long time. I can say things like that. I can go to my parents and say, here's your new updated map. If you're looking for investments, look here, 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 and here. Don't look over here. It's tapped
Nashville's been a great market though, too. Yep. I don't know if it's slowed down. I would imagine it has. No,
it's not. It's also, from what I have been hearing from my mother, is she's still very busy.
Good.
Very, very busy.
She deserves it.
Yeah,
we got to get
does.
her down here. I'm sure she's visited, obviously.
This first house that we build behind Armature Works will be a collaborative project between the two of us, and will allow me the ability to start getting my own loans and all that kind of stuff to build. And hopefully partner on her with some projects, get her business partner involved, bring them down here. Family business, right?
I love it. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Kelsey, this has been great.
We could talk for 10 hours.
You are a bad chick, all the stuff you're doing.
Thank
It's
you.
amazing.
Thank you.
So like I kind of mentioned a little bit, I was raised by my mom. She's an entrepreneur. I have a wife who's amazing and such a strong woman. I have one uncle by blood, and then I have 4 aunts on my mom's side. My dad doesn't have any brothers. It's 2 chicks. All my cousins are women. I am surrounded by powerful women. So it's always nice to meet one.
Thank you. Your wife's incredible, and I cannot wait to hang out with her.
She is incredible.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Kelsey, thanks again. Where can people follow along and find you and watch your show?
So personal Instagram is at It's Kelsey Duncan. And then the show is the Behind series. So that is where you can connect.
Stay tuned, people. Potentially next week for
Yes.
episode 1.
Yeah.
Potentially, fingers crossed. I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, me too.
Amazing. All right. Bye, everybody.
Thank you guys. It's a wrap.